and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Look, folks, we got a couple of videos to pull up, and it's just an example of just how pathetic the Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration truly are. In this first article here, it has to deal with the fact that, number one, most Americans deem Biden presidency a failure, according to a recent CNN poll. That's what's happening right now. Now, don't tell Rachel Maddow or TYT to just might crap the bed, but as it stands, the majority, 58% of Americans, disapprove of Joe Biden's performance as United States president, according to CNN poll taken over the last month and published on Thursday. The figures follow a steady decline in popular opinion regarding the Democratic career politician whose approval ratings have been slipping precariously since last March. Now, this is something that we've warned about here at Hardlens Media. We said that this was going to happen throughout the entire 2020 election cycle. We said this during the primary, that if Biden's going to be the nominee, he'll be a disaster of a president. And we said during the general election that he will be just as an epic failure as Trump. Okay? And the sad fact is, let's face it, the Democrats were riding on a wave of defeating Trump, and they did defeat Trump. But the orange boogeyman's going to come back again in 2024, and nothing has fundamentally changed. The kids are still in cages. Americans are being evicted from their homes and apartments. Americans are struggling day in, day out just to make ends meet. And we're still doing ridiculous regime change wars. I'll get back to that soon. But hold on. More than half the group that reportedly disapproved of Biden, 56%, also said that there was literally nothing Biden has done since taking office that they approve of. And a similar portion, 57% of Americans, declared the first year of his presidency to be more of a failure than a success. Now, again, a shout out again to our wonderful audience, and shout out to two of our colleagues, Case Study QB and Roger Meadows, who have also messaged us in the past, as have all of you have said in our live stream chats. Biden has the power through executive order to legalize cannabis, make Medicare for all happen, and pardon student debt. What a win that would be. What a huge approval Biden would get, a huge approval boost that he would get if he actually chose to do something with his administration, if he actually chose to actually step up and actually do the right thing. But he's not going to do it. Biden is a corporatist through and through. He's a failure being on the wrong side of history. As we have reported in the past, Biden was against busing and desegregation. Biden was for the war in Iraq. He sided with the credit card corporations to make student debt the nightmare that it is. Biden has always been on the wrong side of history. He's always been a neoliberal, corrupt politician. And yet, we were bombarded throughout all of 2020 to vote blue no matter who. All the people that were browbeaten and yelled at and forced or that made guilty or feel guilty that if they didn't vote for Biden, they were terrible people. Was it worth it to vote for this clown? Because the orange boogeyman's coming back. And God help us if we have to sit through another debate of two old men arguing over a bowl of soup. Continuing on with the article, even Democrats are beginning to tire of their leader. While 83% of the party members reportedly approved of Biden's performance, that figure was down 11 points from last March, and its approval ratings among non-Democrats are bottoming out. Just 36% of independents and 9% of Republicans viewed his performance positively. To our audience, let's actually have some democracy in this chat. Let's actually have some democracy here. And this is, everyone, just be honest with your opinion. Type 3 if you have approved of Biden's presidency during the first year. Type 4 if not only is he a disappointment, but there's no way that you would ever vote for him in 2024. Let's get that chat going. Let's again have that graphic, democracy. Type 3 if you approve of Biden's presidency. Type 4 if you disapprove. There you go. Continuing on with the article. Respondents who disapproved of Biden's performance had no shortage of reasons. His handling of the economy, the pandemic has dropped 8 and 9 points respectively, and only 37% of Americans favoring his economic policies and 45% approving of his pandemic response. Just 18% claimed to have a lot of confidence in his ability to handle the economy going forward, and only a quarter were highly confident in his pandemic policies, to come nearly halving the numbers he was getting last year. Near record inflation leading to soaring gas and food prices has led many Americans struggling to make ends meet, the ones lucky enough to have kept their jobs during the pandemic at least. Now look, folks, This is the problem with the Democratic Party. They know that they're screwing up, and they expect us now to give them our vote during this midterm. The Biden-Harris administration is cancer at this point. And to all the progressives saying, if we just hold our feet to the fire, good luck, because it's not going to work. It never will. The growing chorus of disapproval was reflected in the answers to questions about the COVID-19 policy, which still governs many aspects of life, especially in blue states. While nearly three-fourths of Democrats, 73%, were highly in favor of existing policies aimed at stopping the spread, an equivalent portion of Republicans argued it was time to learn to live with the virus, as the UK and some European nations have begun doing. More than half of independents, 54%, agreed Americans should learn to live with the virus, a figure which skewed toward younger adults and families with children. U.S. public schools have been partisan battlegrounds over COVID-19 restrictions, and many parents arguing that mask mandates favored by Democratic governors hinder normal childhood development, and a whopping three-quarters of Americans reportedly feeling burned out by the pandemic. While respondents couldn't agree on a single leading issue they felt Biden should tackle going forward, only 21% of respondents reported having a lot of confidence that he could provide meaningful leadership. Estimates of his ability to work with Congress have been halved, falling to an abysmal 15%, with even steeper drop of 28 points among Democrats since last March. The leading issues among respondents were reducing inflation, voting rights, border security, all issues on which Biden has failed to deliver on the campaign promises. Again, but hold on, it gets worse for the Biden-Harris administration. Let's pull up this first video. Again, these are different aspects of what the Biden-Harris administration, this great Democratic administration, has to deal with. And corporate media is jumping on it. And we're going to be bombarded with a lot of issues. And I'm saving the last video for, obviously the last video that we're going to play, it's downright disappointing. Because again, we just keep repeating 2016. But let's play this first video right here.
President Biden made the short trip to Culpeper, Virginia yesterday, where he stressed the need for lowering prescription drug prices.
We pay the highest prescription drug prices of any nation, developed nation in the world, the highest of any. This is the United States of America, for God's sake. That's just wrong. It's simply wrong, especially since it doesn't cost the drug companies nearly as much to make the drug or the research that went into them. The idea you can charge whatever you want is just not going to happen in the United States of America if I have anything to do with it.
Let's pause it right
The president appeared.
Biden right now is still refusing, or he's knowingly not doing anything about his fellow colleagues in the Democratic U.S. Senate, such as Kristen Sinema, who is against lowering prescription drug costs, as well as numerous other blue dog Democrats. Biden, you could say that thing you could say your wonderful speeches on the podium, but in all reality, you're not going to contribute to lowering prescription drug costs. You're against it, just like how you said you're against Medicare for all and single-payer health care and so many other issues. Let's play the rest of the video.
Alongside Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, who has made drug costs one of the key issues in her re-election campaign. And the congressman, who's in a tough fight, she'll discuss President Biden's visit when she joins Morning Joe today. Yesterday was an interesting moment for this president, heading to a swing district. There has been some real discussion this week about Democrats. Some of them want the president to show up and campaign for them. Others, maybe not. What's your sense as to how this visit went and how the White House plans to approach these tough congressional fights?
You know, it's interesting. You raise a really good point. Spanberger didn't want to call it a campaign stop. She wanted to call it a policy stop, and that's an important difference. She didn't want to be campaigning with the president or seeing as being a political message. She wanted to say, look, prescription drugs is a huge issue for me and for the party and the country, as you mentioned, and that's what I'm here to focus on. She didn't want to see it as a straightforward campaign event, which is it's a subtle difference, but it's an important one. And we were struck by it, and I think you were too. And we're seeing that. I think, we talked to a number of Senate Democrats this week in vulnerable races and House Democrats. We're going to be doing some more reporting on that A lot of them won't have Biden in their district. Some are not excited about it. I mean, his poll numbers are rough. He was at 40% approval rating in a poll by another network and 58 disapproval. I mean, his numbers are bad. They're in Trump territory. So, some Democrats are going to have to make a choice. Do they want the president in their district or not? And right now, I think it's a toss-up.
So it's actually far more interesting to address this failure of the Biden-Harris administration. So here's some interesting points that we have to bring up. This all could have been avoided. But remember, the Democratic Party, the vote blue no matter who crowd were celebrating and going to brunch and thinking how everything was going to get better and that Biden would eventually take care of things. His first year, nothing happened. His first year in office, nothing happened. His first 100 days, nothing happened. And again, I keep mentioning through executive order, Biden can legalize cannabis, he can pardon student debt, he can make Medicare for all happen. Didn't happen at all. His administration constantly bent over backwards to appease a non-elected official, the Senate parliamentarian. And think about how many times they've appeased Joe Manchin and Senator Kristen Sinema. This is the weakness of the Biden-Harris administration. They can't get anything done. And let's face it, in my opinion, Biden is showing some early onset Alzheimer's. There's something wrong with him. But we've been talking about it for a long time. But yet, there was always that pushback from the vote blue no matter who crowd saying, we got to stop Trump. We got to stop Trump. Well, Trump's going to run again in 2024. Is that your heavyweight champion? And by the way, guess what? Kamala Harris, she's not that popular either. She got 0 delegates during the primary. 0, 0, 0, 0. A big 0. Democrats, honestly, I take back any kind word I ever said about the progressive movement in the Democratic Party, because progressives, is this the hill you're choosing to die on? Voting blue no matter who? Trying to form a sick party? It's not going to work. Let's pull up this next video right here.
Liberals in the Senate are giving President Biden a wake-up call. Montana Democrat Senator Jon Tester telling CNN the party is doing nothing for middle America just 10 months ahead of the midterms.
The national Democratic brand I think in rural America generally is toxic. And it's because, quite frankly, we don't show up. We're not willing to go places we're not wanted and answer questions.
I would even say it's 9 months till the midterms. But again, math, not my specialty. Even Democrat socialist Bernie Sanders criticizing the lack of action, saying in part, we started off with a strong agenda that was very popular and people responded to the president's leadership. It's no great secret that for 5 months, with the exception of infrastructure, we have not been addressing the needs of the American people. And when you have lost Bernie Sanders, you have lost a lot, Miss Ashley Strohmeyer. Liberals in the Senate are giving President Biden a wake-up call.
Repeating itself. So, response to this. Bernie, that's your friend, Joe Biden. Your friend, your good buddy, your pal, your best friend. You kept saying that during the debates. And when push came to shove, when Obama made that phone call to the other Democratic candidates, you dropped out as well. You lost your fight. And you went to go ahead and fight for your good friend who didn't adopt any of your progressive policies, who constantly ignored any demands from the entire progressive movement in the Democratic Party, be in the U.S. Senate or the House of Representatives. So, Bernie, glad that you're calling it out, but, let's face it, this midterm is going to be an epic slaughter. Now, there is a possibility that maybe the Democrats could potentially scrape on by and still have a slim majority, or a miracle can happen and they get a majority in the House and Senate, but that's probably not going to happen. What's likely going to happen is the Republicans are going to take over the House and Senate. Now, no matter which one of those three scenarios is going to take place, nothing is going to fundamentally change. And the thing is, we, as voters, as people living in this country, have to stop relying on these politicians and believing that they actually care about us. The same people who own our media are the same people who own our politicians. They don't care about us. They don't think about us. They don't really like us. That's a real fact. Now, Bernie, for some reason, says that somehow we need to, keep on turning out to vote for the Democratic Party. But I want to pull up this video here. And because I spoke out earlier in this video, I said that this was the last video. This is the second to last video. This is the video that has me concerned because, again, there are so many people in this country that are so afraid of Trump and can't really think for themselves. But yet history is repeating itself because now, with the failure of the Biden-Harris administration, there are key Democratic leaders, donors, and even voters that want someone else to be president or run in 2024. No, it's not going to be Kamala Harris. There's people saying that Hillary Clinton should be the person, and trending on social media is the ridiculous "I'm still with her." The same Hillary Clinton whose husband has some questionable ties to a very interesting individual that could or might have been involved in a lot of very seedy behavior. Let's face it. But there's a lot of people talking about Hillary Clinton running again. Let's pull this video up from Fox News.
You got it.
But Biden's plummeting poll numbers are only fueling rumors that Hillary Clinton could make a comeback and run for the presidency in 2024. The former Secretary of State set to speak at a major Democratic convention in New York City next week. Christian, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it would be funny, a rematch between Hillary and Trump, sort of the baby boomers' last hurrah. I think it's unlikely. If you look, the Democratic Party is going farther to the left. AOC criticizing Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi is likely out after this election. Why serve in the minority when, you have these progressives younger nipping at your heels and you have no power? So I don't think the Democrats are ready for the Wall Street Clinton brand again, but you never know.
Can we pause it here?
But
Right here. So hold on. I got to stop this right here. Hold on. First of all, Fox, the Democratic Party has always been on board with Wall Street, big banks, and major corporations. I know because you're a Fox News contributor, you got to say, oh, they're socialists or they're communists. In what world are you living in? Like, they have to either be holding a gun to your head or you're just drinking some stupid potion so that you could say the same stuff over and over again. The Democratic Party is not moving left. They are centrist, or use that, moving to the right. This whole idea of the Democratic Party adopting socialism or any kind of progressive policy is a fool's dream. AOC being critical of Mama Bear, yeah, that's maybe for a few seconds, but then all of a sudden she's doing nothing but appeasing her and basically bowing down to her. Look, the Democratic Party is not listening to the progressive movement. That is a fact. Play the rest of the video.
Brian, I would love if Hillary Clinton stood up to the far left, the members of the squad, and said, yeah, we're not ending the prison system. We're not ending the carceral system. People who commit crimes are going to jail. Like, it's not that hard to...
Pause this here. What progressives and activists are saying is for there to be fair justice. What progressives and activists are saying is stop police brutality. Stop people from being arrested for ridiculous crimes. End the kids in cages. Like, that's what people are. Again, Fox News. It's so interesting to see some of the stuff that spews out of their mouth, and I find them more interesting than CNN and MSNBC because, of course, they're corporatists as well. But it's just some of the stuff that comes out of Fox News' mouth, and some of these pundits' mouth. It's interesting. I'm wondering, like, do they just sit down and be like, okay, who do we call communist this time? Like, that's what I have to think is happening in these newsrooms, especially in Fox News. Let's play the rest of it.
Move a little bit more to the center in this environment because Biden's been pulled so far to the left with his weak need or lack of respect.
Biden hasn't moved to the left at all. He doesn't even know where he's moving at. Biden has implemented zero progressive policies. No Medicare for all, no student debt forgiveness, no affordable college, not ending regime change wars, not stopping the prison industrial complex. We're not investing into our infrastructure. We're doing nothing about climate change. So this whole idea, no UBI, no Federal Jobs Guarantee Act, no nothing. We're not getting anything. Biden didn't move to the left at all. He stood right where he's at, Jack. Let's play the rest of the video.
Response to these left-wing nuts.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. Hillary Clinton is going to be the moderating voice of the Democratic Party. She's going to swoop in. If we're relying on her to restore sanity, Dagan, then these poll numbers aren't even close to telling us how bad things are. They've got no imagination. There's no imagination in the party. Somebody to step up and say there's a better way to do this. If Hillary Clinton is seriously in the mix, then we are really in trouble.
Thank you both, gentlemen. We'll be right back.
Okay, I had to agree with that last pundit speaking. He is absolutely correct. The Democratic Party lacks imagination, and if they have to go back to Hillary Clinton, then yes, that party is destined for failure. And there's no way you're going to convince me to vote Democrat. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton during the primary. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 general election. I voted third party. I voted third party during the midterms. I voted third party in the 2020 election cycle. So looks like in 2022 and also in 2024, I'm going to vote third party. And I'll do it again and again and again because let's face it, this whole fear-mongering and relying on this administration to do the right thing, it's a fool's dream. And now there's talk and rumors of Hillary Clinton running again in 2024. My goodness, things got to change. Stop relying on these politicians. I want to pull up this last video. It's from former Representative Tulsi Gabbard. I'd like to play in its full entirety.
I supported Joe Biden, and millions of other Americans voted for Joe Biden because he promised to unite us. He promised to bring us together, to end the divisiveness. Now, sadly, not only has he failed to do this, he has betrayed us all by pouring fuel on the fires of divisiveness that are tearing our country apart. Now, Biden compares those who disagree with him to racists, traitors, to enemies of bygone eras. And Biden now has his attorney general targeting millions of Americans as domestic terrorists.
We face an elevated threat from domestic violent extremists. That is, individuals in the United States who seek to commit violent criminal acts in furtherance of domestic, social, or political goals. Domestic violent extremists are often motivated by a mix of ideologies and personal grievances. We've seen a growing threat from those who are motivated by racial animus, as well as those who ascribe to extremist, anti-government, and anti-authority ideologies.
So if we allow this to continue, our country, the country that we love, the land of the free, the home of the brave, it'll be unrecognizable and it'll be lost forever.
So while I do agree with everything that former Representative Tulsi Gabbard said, at the end of the day, her, Andrew Yang, Bernie Sanders, and all the other Democratic candidates in the 2020 primary did endorse and support Joe Biden. So all of them do take responsibility. But these are words I agree with because, let's face it, the Biden administration is on board with censorship. The Biden administration is on board with keeping things the same. The Biden administration has no imagination, and the Biden administration is basically leading the Democratic Party towards where they are destined to be at, absolute failures. This midterm election cycle will be a sign of just how bad this party truly is. There's nothing any one of us can do to help out anyone in the Democratic Party, and I am not going to waste my vote on them. So earn my vote. Convince me. Tell me why we should support the Democratic Party. Now, of course, we are a new show. We are going to have, obviously, candidates that are running for office, be they Green, Libertarian, Democrat, or Republican. But when we interview these candidates, we got to ask, plain and simple, especially with what we've seen throughout this previous election cycles of 2016, 2018, and 2020, and that is, what are you going to do to make our lives better? What are you going to do to make yourselves stand out? How are you going to help out working class citizens? Why should we have confidence and trust in you? It's going to be an uphill fight. But I also want to end this on a final note, too. I want to pull this article up. I don't have it in the show notes, but it has to deal with Biden warning Americans who are in Ukraine to leave. It says sending troops to evacuate would be world war. Now we have this administration instigating a fight with Russia and this ongoing crisis that's going on in Ukraine. I don't know what kind of nightmare scenario we're walking ourselves into, but this administration has made it very clear to me, and hopefully to all of you, that nothing's going to change. And the only way we can change things in this country is if we build organizations, third parties outside the influence of Washington, D.C., and we have to do it now because these politicians are okay with abandoning us.